hostage, in fact, for more than 4 hours. They demanded to be flown to either Iran or Syria, but the pilots were able to make that emergency landing in southwestern Turkey. Several passengers helped themselves by escaping from the back of the plane when the hijackers opened a door to let in some fresh air. Today, a presidential daughter who made the trip down the aisle at the White House has some advice for this lovely lady right here. That's Jenna Bush, as she busily prepares now for her big day to fiancé Henry Hager. Patrick Gavin is a reporter for the Washington Examiner and joins me now to talk about the big event. Good morning to you. Nice to see you, Patrick.
Good morning, Alex.
Can you give me any details on how the engagement happened?
Nobody knows that quite yet. There's a little speculation that it might have taken place at a inn up in Maine because somebody spotted Jenna Bush having actually signed the guest book. The inn, when contacted, couldn't confirm that, but there's some good speculation that that may have been actually where it took place. But other than that, we don't know for sure. How
about any details about how Henry approached his father-in-law-to-be? What about that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. There was actually an interview with Henry Hager's father and yesterday, and his father, now a state GOP chair in Virginia and a former lieutenant governor of Virginia, and the way he was speaking sounded as if it's not as if the Bushes and the Hagers have been, you know, palling around for years and years and years. They've obviously met. Henry obviously asked for President Bush's permission to marry his daughter, but it doesn't sound as if the two are super chummy. Now, I'm sure over the course of the engagement and certainly during the marriage, this will change. But I don't think that, you know, the Hagers and the Bushes have been palling around in Kennebunkport for months and months and months at this point.
You know, Patrick, I'm just getting a big old kick out of this, you know, young man going to the man who's going to be his father-in-law, which is daunting enough, yet having to say, excuse me, Mr. President, I'd like to marry your daughter. I mean, you know, think about it. He's a very traditional guy, and that is indeed what he did, right?
He did, and yeah, that's got to be extremely intimidating. Now, you have to imagine that all reports of President Bush as a person, like him politically or not, is that he is a very, you know, funny, self-deprecating guy. So I'm sure that President Bush had a little bit of fun at Henry's expense. You know, probably made him feel a little bit nervous, but then was totally fine with it at the end.
You can about imagine. Any idea how life is going to change for Henry now that the world knows who he is officially?
Oh, I'm sure life is going to change drastically, and he's going to have a lot more paparazzi around him. He's going to, you know, we're all now going to scourge the internet to find out what we can find out about him. See if he has a Facebook page, find out what he did in college. I mean, it's going to get intense for him. So hopefully he scrubbed the records at this point, but he can expect a little more FaceTime on TV for sure.
Poor guy. Anyway, let's talk about Tricia Nixon Cox, who was the last presidential daughter to tie the knot at the White House, and she's offering this piece of advice for Jenna Bush. And here she says, enjoy the happiness of your family and friends. Bouquets are lovely, cakes are delicious. What matters most about the day is the people attending. Patrick, do you have any insight into who the likely attendees would be for a wedding like this?
Well, you know, it all depends. I mean, the first question we need to find out is where it's going to take place. I think the three big options now are either in Kennebunkport, in Crawford, Texas, or at the White House. If it takes place at the White House, you can expect that the number of political folks are certainly going to ratchet up. It's going to be in D.C. It's going to be at the White House. It's going to be an historic affair with tons of cameras. So you can imagine if it's the White House, it becomes a bit more of a public ceremony, and you might see a few more politicians there than you would otherwise if it was at their private place in Crawford or Kennebunkport.
Patrick, how much do you think the White House has to advise the president on how public this needs to be if he remains president when this wedding takes place? Actually, I mean, should this be at the White House for political reasons, or should it not be?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of theories on that. One, a lot of people say if you have it at the White House, that's actually a boon to the president, because we're all going to focus on it. It's going to be very romantic and historic. And so, and actually, you know, some people think politically speaking could give President Bush a bump, and we'll forget about all the other things going on in the country. Personally, the White House might not also be a bad choice either, because there's a no-fly zone, so no paparazzi. There's Secret Service, so if somebody gets out of hand at the wedding, if somebody, you know, has drank too much at the wedding, they don't need to worry about that getting out of hand. So personally, it could be a very safe zone. But the other thing is that Jenna really has never been a huge fan of Washington. Her heart's always been in Maine. Her heart's always been in Texas. She's never spent too much time here. So there's a chance that she might personally want it to be somewhere besides Washington.
Okay, well, I'm sure she'll make her wishes known to her daddy.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Patrick Gavin.
Thank you.
Picking up power, deadly hurricane moving east, threatening to slam the U.S. mainland within days. The latest details on its path and the potential.
This is Ashley. She's 18. Her boyfriend is Anthony. Let me tell you about